Okay, so in this video we're going to take a look at VarArgs, or variable arguments. The way that I'm going to approach this is by first showing you an example of a method that we've already been using as a part of our Java API that takes advantage of VarArgs. I'll talk a little bit about what's going on with that method, and then we'll go ahead and try to implement our own method that takes a VarArgs parameter. So we're going to go ahead and create a new file or a new project. I'm going to call this VarArgs.java. So go ahead and make our class header. So I'll have public class VarArgs. We'll have our main method, public static void main. And inside of here, I'm going to create the printf method. So we're going to have our system.out.printf. So I have our pair of double quotes, since the first parameter for a printf method is a string, and inside of this string there's going to be one or more format specifiers, since that's the whole point of printf, is to be able to format the string in some way. So those format specifiers are going to be in the form of a %, followed by, at the very least, some kind of conversion character. So in this case we'll do an f. So we're going to have %f, say maybe we do this 3 times. So we've got 3 different format specifiers that we want to put into this. And these format specifiers are just placeholders for some variables that we might specify a little bit later. So at that point, we're going to have one or more additional arguments that we have to pass into the printf method based on the number of format specifiers that we gave. So as the number of format specifiers increases or decreases, the number of arguments that we're passing into the printf method also has to increase or decrease. So that tells us that the length or the number of arguments, there's some variability to it. So that's where we get the name variable arguments, or VarArgs. So we could have 3 additional numbers here, something like 28.8, say 35.1, and maybe 43.7. Okay. So in this case, we've got 4 arguments, but if I add another one of these format specifiers to it, then we go up to 5 arguments. So Java needs to be able to handle the fact that the number of arguments might change over time. So the way that we're going to go about implementing this, I want to create another method that at the very least is capable of printing out some set of numbers like this. So I'm going to do public static void, and this one I'm just using it to do a print statement, so the return type can be void. The name of this, I'm going to call it show numbers. And for this, we're going to specify the data type to be double for the arguments or the parameters that we can pass in, so it matches up with these doubles that we're using for this printf. And then we'll call this number, or ideally we'll call this numbers. And then the other thing I need to include to indicate to Java that this is going to be a VarArgs parameter is a ... So when we add this extra little bit to our data type, this is going to specify to Java that we can now provide one or more doubles as arguments to this method. Okay. And so then what I'm going to do is create a for loop to be able to step through this numbers, this set of arguments that I'm passing in, and be able to print out each one of those individual numbers. So we're going to do for, and we'll use an index, so kind of like an array. We'll say int index equal to 0. Well, index is less than numbers.length, index ++, and then right here we'll go ahead and do a print line statement. So system.out.println, and we want to print out the value inside of numbers, so one of these arguments at this specific index. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to comment out this printf statement, and instead we'll use show numbers to handle the functionality of printf, at least to some degree. So we're going to put in the 28.8, the 35.1, and the 43.7. Okay, so we'll go ahead and compile this and run it, and the expectation is that we're going to print out these 3 numbers, each on their own separate line. So we'll compile this, so it's going to be varargs.java. We'll then run it, and we can see each one of these 3 numbers printing to the console. And of course, if we add another number to this, say like 51.6, we save that. If we compile this and run it again, we can go ahead and add an additional one to it. So this constantly is able to keep track, essentially, of the number of arguments we've given it and be able to effectively handle any number of arguments. So then the question is, precisely what is going on here? So whenever we specify it like this numbers right here, once we get into the body of this method, numbers is going to be treated as an array. So this is going to become an array that holds each one of these values that we've passed in. And you can tell that if you look at this for loop, I specified the length field. So this indicates that we're using the length field of an array for numbers. So this is one of the giveaways. And then also the fact that I needed to use a subscript here to specify a particular position for numbers, again indicating that this must be an array. Okay. One other thing I want to go ahead and demonstrate is whenever we use a VarArgs parameter along with some additional parameters. So let's say, for example, I want to also be able to include a string at the beginning of my argument list. So we're going to have additional string right here. So I'll just use the word hello. And right here, I want to be able to specify this additional parameter. So we've got our string word and then our VarArgs double for numbers. And so then we'll go ahead and print these in order. So we'll do a print statement here. And we're going to print out the word that's being passed in. So we'll first print out the word hello, and then we'll print out each one of these 4 numbers that we're giving it. So we'll go ahead and compile this and run it. And we can see the hello there and then all of the numbers. Okay. So the way that we're keeping track of this is basically just matching up the data types. So this string that it sees at the beginning, that corresponds to string word, and then all of these doubles that it sees after that all correspond to this VarArgs for double. One of the other things to keep in mind about this, though, is that whenever you're specifying a VarArgs parameter, it must always be the last parameter among all of the parameters that you're listing. So we can do it in this order, but if I were to take this and try to invert it, say something kind of like this, we'll go ahead and take that and move it here. Go ahead and save that. So if I try to run it like this, go ahead and clear and run this, then we run into this issue where it's kind of complaining about certain characters missing or not being in the proper place. What it's really trying to tell me is that I just can't have additional parameters after a VarArgs parameter. So that's one of the additional kind of constraints when using VarArgs, is that they must always be the last parameter that you specify in the overall parameter listing for a method. Okay. So that's going to wrap up everything for VarArgs. In the next video, I'm now going to start talking a little bit about multi-dimensional arrays, say like 2-dimensional arrays, 3-dimensional arrays, and also a little bit beyond that as well.